We're live on 108 Praise. We have a awesome show coming up this evening with our wonderful guest at Teresa Renee Hunt. And she is going to be talking about setting us free in our relationships so we can find authentic fulfillment, not fake fulfillment, not faking it till we make it, but the real deal of freedom. And that's what we're here on the Master Relationship Mechanics Show, because we want you to have authentic and real relationships with God, yourself, and others, so that we can actually be real people. You know what the word says, true to yourself. True to yourself is what we want to talk about. So she is a life makeover strategist, a transformational speaker, and the thing I like about it is all about change. She's all about implementing change. So the idea today is we want you to free yourself from something that is holding you bound. And the song that we listened to before we came on the air, y'all know how I like to set the atmosphere, get the foundation right before we start talking, was Darwin Hobbs about free from our shame, free from our guilt, free from our past. And that's what we're talking about tonight, getting off the shackles so we're not taking all of that foolery into our relationships that we're trying to put in place. Because a lot of times we mess it up because we're not willing to let go of whatever is hurting us. We need a lot of healing and authenticness and transparency in our life. And she is here to help us get those steps on this road to freedom journey that you all have been joining me for this month of July. I'm honored that you all keep tuning in every Tuesday to get on this road of freedom. And tonight, of course, I'm going to give you your scripture where we're starting from. It's Galatians 5:14. It is for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. And the key is in there, what I want to hit on two things is the law is fulfilled. The law is fulfilled about loving yourself as loving your neighbor as yourself. And the only way you can love your neighbor as yourself is if you truly love you. And so we're going to talk about the true love of self tonight. And I love that t-shirt that our guest has on. It says about awesome. So you're going to find the awesomeness about yourself in this process. And she is definitely a wonderful woman of God. And as I told you when I announced her on the flyer that went out, she is a phenomenal woman. She is a phenomenal wife, a phenomenal mother. And I put a lot of pluses behind it, because the thing is, I think we limit people in these boxes. And the thing is, we need to set people to be free to be their best selves. And the thing is, tonight, that is what she's here to do. Help us all on this road to freedom, find our journey. So our next song coming up after this song, we will get into hearing the voice of Teresa Renee Hunt tonight. And it is by Tyshawn Knight, and it's focused on God. And what it's about is understanding who your first love is. A lot of times in our relationship, we taint our relationships because we take our focus off God and we get focused on man. Not that our husbands aren't our ministry, but if we put them in the place of God, that is what happens, and our relationship becomes tainted. So this song talks about keeping our focus on God so that we can truly have our best relationships. So you all join me in listening to Tyshawn Knight, and the song is called Focus on God, and we will have a blessed evening here. are back, and what you heard weaning out was Tashawn Knight that was focused on God. It's about keeping your first love in place, God, to make sure that your relationship stays in the correct priority. And tonight, we are talking to our wonderful guest, and it's our life makeover strategist and our transformational speaker. So she has some words that's going to help us transform our relationships so that we can be free and true to ourselves. So my first question is, because I like a little statement that you had in your bio, and it says, break free from counterfeit living. What is it that you're going to help people? What is it that you help people do when you say counterfeit living? What does that mean?
Well, Courtney, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share on this subject, which is very near and dear to my heart, because I once was living a counterfeit life. And I know that there are many women who may be listening, who may be watching, that are living a counterfeit life, but may not define it as such. When I talk about a counterfeit living or counterfeit life, I mean those of us who walk around, we have our face beat, eyebrows on fleek, hair is done, lips are good, we have a smile on our face, but when you get behind closed doors, you know, you're hurting inside. You have a facade that all is well. You know how to have conversation to cover up things. You might even be in a relationship with what I call a Band-Aid boo, trying to cover up your hurt and cover up your pain, and you're not fully free to live the abundant life that God says that we can live. So I believe when someone is living a counterfeit life, just like counterfeit money, it looks good on the outside. It's not until you get close and start examining the person and get to know the person's heart and their issues that they've been packing down inside of their heart and their soul, then you realize that, oh, this person is actually not living the kind of life that they are projecting. And so what I do is I help women undo the layers. I help them break through what I call self-sabotaging mindset and just empower them to have the courage to say, you know what, I don't have it all together, and that's okay. But now that I've identified it, let me now be intentional about healing so that I can live a life that is full and free and fulfilled.
Yeah, I like that. Full, free, and fulfillment. And that's the thing. We want people to be free for a purpose. Because I think people get confused and they be like, okay, I want to be free, I want to be independent, but it's for a purpose. It's for a purpose that you're doing all this to reach a place of true fulfillment. And that brings us to your next thing where you say you unleash greatness so you can live fearlessly. I mean, I want to be so ferocious that it's nothing that I know I can't do. So that's what I want people to feel when they go away from this conversation. So how do you help people reach that whole fearless type of living so that they have their best relationships?
Well, first of all, you have to understand who you are. I mean, it sounds so cliche, know who you are, but it's so true, because when you understand truly that God actually, the Bible says that he didn't give us a spirit of fear. So that lets us know that we can be fearless. We just have to give ourselves permission. We have to let go of other people's opinions, what they think, what they feel. We have to stop looking for validation before we move in our calling and before we do what we know is on our heart to do. And so it's just very important for us to know that we are created powerfully, that we're created beautifully and wonderfully. We're intelligent, we're change makers. And when we finally understand the fact that we're connected to the King and the King is royalty, and especially in our love relationships, that we deserve to be treated as such, which is royalty, then it helps us to alleviate or to break through the fear that we have, whether sometimes our fear is fear of success, fear of failure in love relationships, fear of trusting another person, maybe because we've been hurt before. But when we know that we are, like I said, fearfully and wonderfully made, connected with the King, and when we understand that we are worth it. When we talk about worth it, it's always associated with worth the weight. But when we know we are worth someone investing their time, worth the pursuit, we're worth having a wonderful, free, limitless life, when we understand our true worth and identity, then it releases us to be free and to not have to live under the guise of what someone else wants us to do.
Okay, so now that's a great message for people who are single, who aren't in a relationship. You know, you got to find yourself. You got to find your self-worth. Now, what if you're already married and you still just hadn't reached that point to know, hey, I'm a little bit afraid still. I haven't, like your shirt says, reached my authentically awesome self yet. And I'm still waiting for my husband to validate me to move forward. Still waiting for him to give me the okay and the permission to live in my purpose. Now, what do you say to women who need to find their freedom in their relationship, but in an appropriate and healthy way so that they're still respecting their husband and their marriage? How do you navigate that in a positive way? And I know you're like, woo, that was a lot of questions.
Okay, so let me kind of go back into that, dig a little bit deeper. I would say, you know, it's very important for us to recognize that our ability to have a fulfilled life and to be free and to love our lives and to do what we're called to do isn't based on our relationship status. So we have to, you know, sometimes we may find ourselves, like you said, in a relationship or marriage where we're looking for that validation from our spouse. And it's always good to have support from our spouse, but our spouse doesn't have to give an account for whether or not we as an individual fulfill our assignment.
Yeah.
So we have to, although it may be challenging to move forward without having that connection with your spouse, with them cheering you on or with them giving you that validation, first I would say have a conversation with your spouse and let them know how important it is to you for them to have your back, for them to give you the words of encouragement, for them to give you the words of endearment and empowerment and support the mission and the call that's on your life. Sometimes the spouse just doesn't know how important it is to you. And sometimes we think, especially as women, that men, we want them to be mind readers or they should just know.
Yeah.
Well, they're different from us. They don't just know. So sometimes we just have to take the step and let them know how we would like for them to support us. And then if they still aren't able to do that, we have to still give ourselves the permission to say, you know what, even though, you know, as long as it's not anything detrimental and completely against the marriage and completely against the Bible, that if this is what I believe God is calling me to do, even though my spouse, I tried getting through to him or her, I've tried to explain how they can support, but you know what, at this time, this is what I feel the Lord is leading me to do. This is my passion. I'm going to go forward in this, but I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to respect you. I'm still going to submit to you. But this is what I need to do for my personal life. And I hope that you would, you know, support me as I continue to move forward.
Yeah. The key things that I heard, support and validation are different. And I think we get that confused a lot of times in relationships, that we want that person to necessarily agree or get on board with us. That's not the exact same thing. Men support it in a different way. They're not necessarily going to do it in the same way like you say we do as women. But the thing is, we need to understand that struggle. We have to show the same amount of passion for it that we want them to show. A lot of times we're waiting for something that we want to do, like you say, to be validated because we want them to read our minds. But unfortunately, we aren't very passionate or consistent about it. So that's why they hadn't got on the bandwagon yet, because they don't know that it's something we really want to do yet. So we have to actually, like you say, start walking in it, start believing in it, start setting ourselves free along that pathway so that they'll know, okay, this is something you're really serious about. Now I know how to help you. Now I know what it is that you need. Like you said, that open-minded conversation that needs to occur. So now I know you have this awesome book out there on Amazon that people are talking about, because I've actually went and read all the reviews. I was like, this is the best book since sliced bread. So the thing is, and you know, sliced bread is really good, especially if you brown it up, put a little butter on it. So it's not just regular bread. It's some good bread that's out there. So some bread to help you actually go along and feed yourself to have a good relationship. And it's called Position to Be Found: How to Prepare Yourself for marriage right now. And I think there is a lot of dysfunction because a lot of people aren't preparing themselves for marriage. A lot of people get into marriage and say, okay, when I become a wife or I become a husband, I'll figure it out then. And the thing is, that sounds great, but now you've just set yourself up for a lot of problems. And you had some wonderful promises set up in this book. I was like, she got 9 promises that this book is going to provide to us. And I was like, wow, okay, this is a great book. So I'm telling you all, if you're not married yet, and if you are married, it might be some positions in your relationship that you need to change so you can have a more fulfilling relationship. And just because you're already in a relationship, don't think that you already have all the steps in place. And that was the good thing about some of these promises. And one thing that I like was the first promise was to set you free. So I was like, yes, we got a free promise. It was the first one that was on there. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to ask her, how is she going to set everybody free so that they know how to get in a position to be found. So how do you set them free to get in a position to be found? And you know, a position is, y'all know, whether you're being a little slouchy, you got it up together. So tell us, because I know you tell us your story of how you got yourself in a position.
Oh, boy. What is my story? Well, I would say my story is really how that book first was written, because I was not in position for the longest time. And really, when I talk about being in position to be found, it's not even just physically found. I know that's what we want because we want the ring on our finger, but it's really about being positioned to be found, a woman who's, that word again, free, who is whole, who is able to love, who is able to submit, and who is able to be vulnerable and connect and become one with the person that God ordains for you to be with. So with my journey, it actually started out a little rocky when I was, quote, found, per se. A little bit before that, I had actually just surrendered my life to God, because in my book I talked about the whole first chapter when I'm really adamant and passionate about women being whole and being free. Because a lot of times, like I said, we stuff things under the rug and we don't realize that we carry that residue into new relationships, and then we wonder why it doesn't work. So a part of my journey was at the age of 16, I actually had lost my virginity due to acquaintance rape. That is a horrible way to enter into the world, or trying to understand what sex is, was to be sexually assaulted and raped. And so with that, for a long time, I didn't tell anyone. I was in relationship after relationship trying to understand what this love really was. And so what I say all that to say is that when I got married, it became evident to me that even though I thought I was healed, even though I thought that I could make those circumstances disappear out of my mind, there were still some things that were implanted in me about how I perceived men to be and how I expected sexual love relationships to turn out. And so I think that if a woman really wants to be positioned, a woman who is whole and ready and is able to love their husband the way God says, which is through respect and through honor and through taking care of your household, that it's so important for women to renew their mind and renew their heart, and to get an understanding biblically of what true love is. Because from our past experiences, my whole point is, our past experiences teach us what to expect. Sometimes, a lot of times, we go into marriage with unrealistic expectations based off of what worked in the past in relationships, what didn't work, the hurts that we've accumulated, and social media, television, radio, movies. So in order for us to have successful, fulfilling relationships, we have to rid ourselves of all of the lies that Satan and the media and everybody else tells us, that it's going to be pretty all the time, and makeup sex will make everything better, and everything that you do in your past doesn't affect your future marriage, and it does. So we have to live our lives in a way that aligns with our desires. We have to make decisions, even when we're single, that align with our desire to be married, because the less baggage you have to bring into the relationship, the better off the relationship will be. The good news is, though, God is a redeemer, and when you marry someone, you're supposed to be in it for the long haul. I know it doesn't happen all the time, but if both sides are committed to the process, even though the relationship may be ordained on purpose, there still is a process of the two becoming one. And sometimes people give up a little bit too soon before that whole thing happens, but it's very essential for women to be intentionally making good decisions, even in their season of singleness, so that when they are positioned to be found, they are found a woman that's ready for real love.
Yeah, I do. I like that you're talking about the packaging of being whole, because I think a lot of times, like you say, we've become so media sensitive now that everything in the media we have begun to believe, and we believe to a point that we believe, okay, that is absolutely not possible for us. I'm never going to be that kind of woman. I'm never going to do those kind of things. And the thing is, you can't live your relationship based on a media bubble. Like you say, you're going to have to weed out what's a lie, and you're going to have to weed out what's real for you, because just because that's what you do in your relationship, that might not work in my relationship, because my husband is not your husband. So it sounded really great on social media. It sounded great when y'all really hung out and did that. And my husband was like, we ain't doing that. That don't sound like fun. So you have to know what works in your own household so it doesn't actually create more chaos. And that's where it comes to that actually have the capability of having free conversation with your mate, so you don't feel like that you are trapped in a place that you can't express yourself. So those things are really important. And that was one of the reasons I really wanted to have you here on the show, because you post some wonderful things on your Facebook page about women actually being true to themselves so they can be better in relationships. And I think that is what we all need, because I have this thing, let's stop faking it till we make it. Because I think that we've said that so often that it has become a bad thing that people have picked up. Well, I'm gonna just fake it till I make it. Okay, just, because the thing is, you become so fake that you don't even realize you hadn't even made it. And when you do make it, you don't know how to transfer back into your real self. You lose yourself, because when you're looking at mirror, you don't even remember how you got to be on this journey to begin with. And the problem is, you're so far away from where you're supposed to be, it's really hard just to turn back around. And that was something in number 3 that I liked your point, was walk in purpose. So that way you don't find yourself all the way off the trail. So how in this book, how do you help us walk in our purpose?
Was the question, how do we walk in our purpose?
No, how do you help us in the book? What chapter, how are you helping people get to find their purpose and walk in it authentically?
Yeah, so pretty much throughout the whole book, there are, every single chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's a section that is a reflective section. There's even a place for people to take notes. And so I just believe that through the whole process of understanding your identity, of understanding what God requires of a wife, challenging them to be free and to get rid of the kiss the cat, pass goodbye, and to have standards. Those are some of the chapters. Throughout all of those chapters, and with the reflective activities, especially where the women are challenged to identify what they like, identify what their strengths are, and what their experiences have been. And so through that process, even though there isn't a specific chapter that talks on purpose, I believe through the whole process, if a woman does actually do the action steps at the end of the chapter, it would allow themselves to be open to God's will for their lives, and then they can begin to walk more purposefully according to God's assignment for them in the season that they're in.
Okay, I like that what you said, because part of the process of the book is not just reading it. And I think that's what we do a lot of times in our lives. We pick up a book, we read it, but we forget the, like you say, the implementation part of it. That's like when we go to church, we hear the word, it's good, it motivated us, it got us, the Spirit filled us, but when we leave out, it's like the Spirit jump off us and we forget to implement that word into our lives. But that's not how it really works. So if we're going to truly go through the process of really using your book as the tool to get us to be found, to get us free, to put us in a position to help us walk in our purpose, we will have to do the reflection. We will have to accept the challenges. And I think that's what we're afraid of. You know, when we don't accept the challenges to see ourselves for who we really are, that true woman in the mirror, we just want to hear what the world has to say about us, and we pick up that, and okay, that person loves us, that person likes this, and then we pick up all of that, and then the problem is we still don't know who we are on the inside, because people have labeled us all of these different characteristics that we should be, how we should identify ourselves, and we all aren't that person. We have to truly be safe and secure within ourselves to say, hey, this is who I am, and take those strengths, like you said, in that reflective thing, and tell our mate and say, okay, these are my strengths, and I need you to respect these strengths and allow me to work within these strengths. You know, and I'm able to move, grow, and learn some of these other things, but this is where I'm the strongest at. And that'll help you have, like you say, that fulfilling relationship where you don't feel like you're working outside of your strengths and you're working within them. So I am definitely encouraging everybody. And I can promise you, she did not tell me to tell y'all about this book. She didn't even tell me to mention the book. I went to look at the book because I believe that it is something that you need to do is work on yourself first before you try to be in a relationship. We have too many people saying I do, but they don't know what to do after they say I do. That's the only thing they're doing is saying I do. But really, when they get into the relationship, all they're saying is I won't, I can't, I'm not. And there's a lot of negatives after they've already made that initial covenant and promise to keep an I do in their relationship. So the book allows, and I say us as women, but my thing is, if as a man, I'm encouraging you to read the book, and I know that she didn't say that either, but the thing is, I'm encouraging you to read it because these are some questions and these are some topics you need to have with women before you get into a relationship to find out, okay, is she healthy? Is she whole? Am I willing to work and wait through some of these issues in a relationship? Am I willing to help her walk through some of these challenges in this book? Am I willing to help her see her for who she really is? Am I going to be the enemy in the relationship because I'm adding extra labels and burdens on this woman? So I'm encouraging you both as men and as women, and especially as married people, to take the time and analyze where you already are in your relationship, because you want to stay in a position in your relationship that you want to stay together. You always want to be constantly blending so much that you can't tell the difference from either person. You all are so blended in your relationship and connected that you both have that same passion and drive. And I don't mean to the point that you lose yourself, but that you become a better we than you were individually. And that's the whole thing. When you combine, you're supposed to become a better we. Because if I was such a great me, why did I become a we to begin with? And that's the whole thing. We're supposed to be getting to a point of a better relationship. So I definitely want you to tell guests where to find you. And I know you have social media networks where if it's an event you're going to be at, because they need to be there to talk to you face to face to get some additional information and love from you.
So
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I would say I just lost your voice. I am across social media platforms at Teresa Renee Hunt, Teresa Renee Hunt, and my website is teresareneehunt.com. And so the book that we have been talking about is Positioned to Be Found. This is a copy. This is what it looks like right here. And this is available at positionedtobefound.com. And when you order there, I will personally sign it, send you a little note in the mail. So I encourage you to go to positionedtobefound.com to get your copy.
All right. See, we want you to be found. We don't want you to be lost in your relationship. And I think that's what happens a lot of times. We get in these relationships. As you said, I love that word, you Band-Aid booze. I don't think I ever heard it that way before. We don't want you all to have Band-Aid booze. So,
right.
Yeah, so it is what I want you all to do. I'm giving you all a challenge. And I'm not just a challenge to buy the book. I'm encouraging you to buy the book. But I give you a challenge to really reflect on yourself, to be true about some of your strengths, some of your weaknesses, and start to work on them. Not to say to change who you are, but work on them to improve you, because you say you want a certain type of relationship. So do you bring that to the table? That's very important. So I'm leaving you with that challenge, because I want all of us get on this road to freedom. All of us. Last week we talked about our finances. This week we're talking about being true to ourselves so that we can be our authentically awesome selves. That is so wonderful. And so to do that, I need you all to actually work on it. So I'm challenging you all to start the work. And if you find something and start working for you, I want you to post it on the Master Relationship Mechanics show page and tell me how it changed you when you sat down, because that's all we have to do most of the time is just sit down and take the time to make a shift in our lives. Most of the time we don't do that because we become so busy doing something else. So I want you all to do that. And plus I am going to put on the site the link to find the book. And I want you to tell us the one thing, just one, you get one thing to tell us. If I was getting newly married, what would be that one question you would want me to ask my spouse to make sure I was making the best decision? I know you like, ooh.
Honestly?
Yeah.
Only one?
Yeah,
Really? Okay. Well, this is really, since I only can choose one, I would have to say, I would ask, is this what God wants for you? Are you making this decision, or is this something that God ordained? And I know I'm not trying to be super spiritual and deep about it and over spiritualize this question, but many people end up in relationships simply because maybe they're lusting after a person and they feel like this is going to be the answer to their lust issue, and so they get married. Sometimes it's because you're entering into the relationship simply based, or the marriage simply based off of feelings. But sometimes you're not going to feel like loving him. Sometimes you're not going to feel like loving her, but it has to be rooted in the commitment that you're making to each other. And then remember, you're making that commitment before God. So that's why I asked, is this what God would have you to do? Because it causes someone to shift out of their emotions, shift out of, if there was any sexual experiences that when you have sex before you get married, those things, that connection will have you thinking that a person is the one. So I would challenge someone before they get married to really do some soul searching, to really seek God and ask for discernment, and to really pray and see, is this what they want, their feelings, their lust, their loins, or is this what the Lord wants?
You know what? I think that question actually covers. See, you picked the best question because it covers everything that possibly could happen. Because when you think about the vows that you make, and if you think about if you can do it in sickness and health, if you can do it poor or broke, it has to be from God. Because if it's about your feelings, it's about your lust, it's about any of that. As soon as something bad happens, that line of commitment was never there for all of that. Because what people say, well, I didn't sign up for all of that now. I signed up for some good sex. I signed up for some happy times. I signed up to keep that feeling going, but all that other stuff I didn't sign up for. And people have to realize it is a lot more you're signing up for in marriage. So, like you say, that's the best question you can ask, because if you have not consulted God, that means you're truly not going into marriage, which is a covenant of God. And people get that confused. Right. People get it confused. Right. It's just a sheet of paper. People say put it on paper. It's not about the paper. It's about the words and the commitment that you're intertwining God in the midst of the relationship. And so if he's not at the center when you're making that decision, don't try to put him in the center later when you've made the bad decision. So I thank you because I want
Right.
people to have that true focus in their relationships. And of course, we're winding down this hour. And as always, I think we have some great musical selections during our hour. So I want you to go back and listen to Darwin Hobbs, his version of Free, because it was talking about getting away from guilt. It was talking about getting away from shame. We had Tashan Nightwell, who is our highlighted artist for this whole month of July. He's been stuck right here in the middle, helping us stay focused on getting free. And this is about our focus on God, going back to our first love, which is very important. If we put man, our husband, our wives, our spouse in God's place, it's going to always have us in a place of bondage, because you can never 100% please a man or a woman. But the thing is, you can always please God if you stay focused on keeping him as your priority. And then he'll work everything else out in your relationships. And then our last song coming up is Kiara Sherrod, and it is another version of Free. I did not realize how many songs talked about freedom. So that is something that we need to allow ourselves to be. And this songs talk about getting free in our mind, in our hearts. And that's a place a lot of times we are put on, like you say, that facade to be free in the world, but we are entrapped in our own bodies and not allowing ourselves to set ourselves to be free. So I want us to be able to find that place of freedom as well. But before we switch into that song, because I don't want to, our listeners, y'all remember, y'all gonna go to her website and y'all gonna find that wonderful book. Even if you are already found, you're gonna gift it to somebody. It's a wonderful gift when people talk about they dating. It's a wonderful book when people even say they're engaged. It is a wonderful book if you are on that single journey to put yourself in a place to make sure that you're preparing yourself for your best relationship. But accept the challenge tonight to find yourself and to find your strengths, to identify your weaknesses so you can have your best relationship. And Miss Teresa, I want you to close us out telling us what is the thing that sets you on this road so that you help other women find their authentically awesomeness.
You said, what was the thing that set me on this road?
Yes, what was the thing that set you on fire to say, this is where I'm going?
Really, it was like we talked about at the beginning of this whole episode, which was missing out on life because I was living a counterfeit one. And like I said, I know that there are women, in particular Christian women, who are leaders, who are desiring more for their life, who know that they have an assignment, a call, who desire to enjoy their life, even though they may not have a ring on their finger, but they're afraid, they talk themselves out of it, or they just don't move because they're afraid. And so when I understand that I'm not the only one, or that I was not years ago, the only one who lived my life like this, and I knew that there were women who would inbox me or they would ask me questions in person because people who saw the transition wanted to know, how did you go from here? How did you go from living your life like this, being shy and being discreet and, being wearing a mask, to living out loud? I call it living your life out loud. How did you go from that? So that really influenced me and put the fire under me to help women in their regular lives, in their personal life. And then once I got married, the shift happened when I understood how important it is for women to live their single life as if they do have the desire to be married, aligning their decisions with that desire, because I'm on the other end now, and I can tell how I could have made some better decisions and how my decisions have impacted my current marriage. But my husband and I are constantly working through things. And so with the help of God and with his commitment, with my commitment, and with us moving forward, wanting to help other people so they don't go down the same path that we did, those are the reasons why I want to really help women live an authentically and awesome life before and after the ring, because you can. You have to embrace it, free yourself to do it, give yourself permission, and go out there and enjoy life. whether you have a boo or you don't.
Yes, whether you have a boo or you don't, we want you all to be authentically awesome. And I appreciate you all joining us here tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the air, to share your book with us, to share your feedback and your authentically awesome experience, that journey that helped you get there from the single woman of finding your freedoms to find your freedom in your relationship. And the key that you said is still working on it. I think that people don't realize you're always a work in progress. People are looking at people thinking that they are going to be perfect. Even in the church, even in the body of Christ, nobody has reached perfection. So the place where we start to put judgment on people and we start trying to validate people, we need to get out of that place, because churches are not of judgment. We're to help people work out their perfection is what it is. So if we can help people work out their perfection and get closer to God, because the key here is to have your best relationship with God, self, and others, and we get those priorities in place. So you all share some love tonight with our guest, Lover. Jump on her website, Teresa Renee Hunt. Visit her social media pages so you all can keep up with her. And I will definitely post the website so you all can go out and gift the book and actually bless other people with the ability to be authentically awesome. And I thank you all. And if you all want to contact me and keep up with me after the Tuesday night show, y'all can always click me. I'm at the Relationship Service Station, and you all can visit me there, whether it's on Facebook or on my website, and keep up with the show there as well. So I'm glad, and I want you all to be free in your mind and your heart and enjoy Kiara Sherrod tonight.